All right, we hit the 10 o'clock mark. For those that are just moseying in right now, we're just going to give it a couple more minutes before we get started. But welcome to Nerdy Birdie featuring himself, Ty Smith at Liongard, as we take a deep dive into Liongard and the integration with Synthesize Billing. Lots to be talked about today, including some prize giveaways, which is really exciting. This is still Nerdy Birdie is still in its infancy, so I appreciate you coming today and building our brand because we're in the business to help MSPs like yourself operationalize and streamline not only billing and alerts, but also kind of pump the tires with synthesized partners like Liongard, because we love all of our synthesized vendors. Ty, how are you doing today?
Doing wonderful, Bryan, and thank you so much. Before we dive in, just thank you so much for inviting us to participate in my very first Nerdy Birdie. I'm
The nerdy
very
birdie. That's
very
right.
excited to be here,
You're the nerdy birdie.
and I am a
Ty.
nerd, so that's
Yeah. What other things do you go by? Because like there's no shortage of like flamingo or bird puns around here at Gradient. I'm sure there's no, or I maybe I should rephrase this. I'm sure that your team takes a lot of pride in lion guard puns.
that's yes, that is absolutely. We do puns of actually anything off the wall is really kind of what we do. Anything creative. That's kind of where we land. Matter of fact, I do an internal office hours every Tuesday morning,
Mhm.
and because my name is Ty, we actually rename those to Ty's Day office hours.
Oh,
So yeah, man. Anything creative, anything thinking outside the box is usually where we land here at Lion Guard. So
yeah. Yeah, there's no shortage of puns and dad jokes. And being a dad myself to 6 and 2-year-old, it's only gonna get worse. So
uh,
um
fun fact in our very first whole company kickoff meeting, at least I think that's where it was. Our two owners, or sorry, our CEO and our COO actually had a dad joke battle.
nice.
And it was just as tremendous as you were probably imagining. So
Yeah, if you're attending and have a dad joke to kick things off, join chat. Like we would love to hear it. I'm sure Chat GPT, as we were just talking earlier with maybe they can crack a joke. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if they couldn't. Um, so I know we have a lot to jam pack into this next 60 minutes. So we're gonna get started right now. And for those that are coming in late, then they can always come back and view the recording. So without further ado, I just wanted to welcome you to this webinar series. We showcase you start to finish examples of successful integrations with our synthesized vendors and channel partners. Now, it's one thing to get an integration off the ground, as we know, but it's quite another to see it take flight. We're featuring guest speakers on the vendor side, and they're sharing their integration experience with us and what it's been like working with Synthesize platform. So what does that mean? Well, that means what worked not so well, what worked great. This is really meant to be success focused and really identify pain points and making sure that we solve for those issues. Synthesize is a solutions provider that has solutions into billing and alerts. And myself coming from an MSP of 6+ years, I know all too well the pain point that comes with billing reconciliation. It's not sexy, let's face it, but we're trying to sexify this with the Liongard integration, which we're really excited to be talking about today. Now, as a heads up, if you're ever interested in learning more about Nerdy Birdie, go to meetgradient.com/nerdy-birdie. You can join us on the third Tuesday of every month as we explore vendor integrations from every angle so you can realize the platform's full potential and take wing. And that is a pun. So there you go. Uh, so next up, we just want to do a brief introduction. We're going to talk about the operational advantage that comes with Liongard and Synthesize Billing. We're going to review best practices and cover some use case scenarios in which might be advantageous to you. And if you do have some big pain points of yours, you have some burning questions yourself, how do I reconcile this? How can I leverage Liongard more? By all means, just jump into the Q&A, jump into chat. We want to hear from you, and we would love to answer your questions. And if it is a unique case, reach out to us. We would love to take this offline and speak to you as well, because let's face it, running an MSP is hard enough. Coming up with custom metrics and identifying all of the nuances that go into pulling and synchronizing that data into your platform is hard enough. So we want to make that easier for you. So, and then on top of that, we're just going to just dabble on some upcoming features within Synthesize Billing. Ty's going to share some things that are coming down the pipeline with Liongard as well. And then we're just going to highlight just some onboarding. We realize that it does take some time in order to take flight. So why not address that? Let's address, billing. Let's address all the nuances that go on with Liongard. Let's face it, there's lots of sweat equity involved in getting these things set up. But by all means, this is where we're encouraging you to do is to take those next steps, because you're going to effectively benefit greatly, enormously from taking those next steps, even if it's incremental 1% a day improvements. You're going to be a much better MSP by the end of this year, if not by the end of this quarter, by the end of this month, by the end of this week, let's say. So that's where we're going to go. And then by the end of this, we're going to draw some prizes. We're going to give away 6 months free of Billing Pro. And it's a heck of a deal, because there are some amazing things coming down the pipeline, including 10, 15 plus integrations coming to Synthesize by the end of this quarter, by the end of March. So really exciting things that I'd love to share with you there. But I love to give away things. But without further ado, like I said before, we have lots to cover. Myself, Bryan Chapman, manager of partner success. I kicked off Nerdy Birdy because I really wanted a success-focused webinar series. Let's face it, when we first implemented Liongard in its early stages, in its beta, it came with some issues. We rectified those. We solved for those. We solved for huge data sets. So if you're an MSP that has, 200, 300 plus clients or environments within Liongard, we're much better now than we were out of the gate. So I'm very confident that we're going to be able to support you in your billing needs, and look forward to diving some deeper into that. But I am a recovering MSP. I like to say that just because I speak to MSPs every day. I get the privilege of working with you, and I often have flashbacks of billing reconciliation, because I was that guy hunkered down in an office for 6 days straight. If you just attempted to knock on my door or crack open that door and interrupt me, you would see the wrath of Bryan. So anyways, enough about me. Let's go on to the nerdy birdie himself, Ty Smith. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I feel like we should have gone ahead and put a dash behind that nerdy birdie there and put recovering MSP as well. I too spent my time at an MSP. Overall, I've been in technology since 97, late 97, early 98, somewhere in that ballpark. If there is something in IT, I have probably done it at one point in time. I started as a desktop technician and worked my way all the way up through the ranks. Was an IT director for a while, again, served in MSP for a little over a year, and finally landed at Liongard doing software education. Right this second, I'm actually sitting on the education team. I don't move over into sales engineering until February 1st. But yeah, I am now or soon to be the sales engineer at Liongard. And like I said, tons of experience here, and hopefully we can get you all aligned not only with Gradient, but with Liongard as well.
Yeah, you're the jack of all trades. And
Big time.
so yeah, there's not one question that you know your way around. So you're truly the king of the jungle. So there's another pun for you. All right. So next up is just the operational advantage. Why Liongard? Why synthesize billing? We want to just highlight some of the benefits of Liongard and synthesize billing. This is where unified data within deep data within Liongard meets unified billing within synthesized billing. Now, Liongard actually, believe it or not, tried to attempted to solve for billing reconciliation, and quite honestly, they wanted to focus on their core product. And so we kind of recognize the benefit of Liongard, and we kind of created our own integration with them. And ever since, it's been great. We've had tons of successful MSPs connect, and leveraging over 70 plus inspectors to synchronize usage counts from those inspectors, from those integrations within Liongard, piggybacking their current integrations, and then seamlessly integrating with those 9 PSAs that we support today. So this is where Liongard becomes your single source of truth to access all of your managed devices in an easily streamlined billing reconciliation. And so why Liongard though, and why synthesize? Because often this is where I get questioned is like, well, you guys are just another middleman. You're just another platform. No, we're not another platform. And I think Ty, you would definitely advocate for that on Liongard's side, because we're not just the middleman. We are Liongard and Synthesize. We're really solving for a fundamental challenge that the channel faces, where there's like this huge technical gap where MSPs, whether it's small, medium, large, have real big challenges in filling that technical gap, how to create actionable alerts, how to streamline and operationalize your billing practices, how to make sure that you're getting paid for everything that you do. And then in turn, like all of the things that you can extract from Liongard. And maybe Ty, if you can spend a little bit of time just like drilling in on that, like what makes Liongard, and why is it not just another platform?
Certainly. So I don't think we would hear a whole lot of MSPs refer to their RMM as just another tool. Mm-hmm. And while we are very, very different than the RMM, there are a few similarities there, right? Your RMM is how you manage your endpoints. Well, what about everything else, right? What about your apps and services? What about your network equipment? What about your cloud systems, right? Your RMM doesn't touch any of those things. And we used to have a tagline, and I loved it. We've gotten a little bit away from it from a marketing standpoint, but I do kind of throw it out there every once in a while. We used to have a tagline that said, where your RMM stops, Liongard begins. And I really like that, because that is truly, that's accurate, right? Your RMM is certainly going to cover those endpoints, but we're going to cover everything, including your endpoints. We are a deep data platform. And what that deep data means is we're going to do everything we can to cover your entire tech stack. We're not just going to focus on one piece. We're not going to focus on just your endpoints like your RMM would. We're not going to focus on just your networking equipment like somebody like maybe Auvik would do. All right. We're going to take a look at your entire tech stack, and we're going to bring that information into our platform so that you can actually then take action on that data that gets returned. So tons and tons of room there, not only to have visibility across your entire stack, again, have that data be actionable, where we can do things like actionable alerts specifically, so we can alert you if we notice something's wrong. Reporting based things, which obviously we're going to get into with the Gradient integration and how we manage our billing reconciliation there with Gradient. But again, at the end of the day, having all of that stuff in our platform makes it where you can actually take action across that entire stack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just it. Like there's so much to extract from Liongard, and this is where truly I believe it's such a a huge benefit if you're currently a Liongard partner, you haven't really got your feet wet, or you're a bona fide expert and you have inspectors galore turned on and you have all your environments in there. This is like wherever you're at, or if you're just checking out and evaluating Liongard, this is a truly one of a kind platform where you have that deep data insights into, you know, quite honestly, if you're a line guard partner right now, you probably already cover most, if not all, of your resale stack or your tool stack within Liongard with their inspectors, with their integrations. You can automate through like IT Glue and all these other integrations with like Break Gauge and ConnectWise Manage, and oh, list goes on and on and on. And it's super exciting because I wish I had that tool when I was an MSP. But this is where we can untap that raw data that's extracted from all of your managed systems, from all of your inspectors, from all of your vendors to extract exactly what you need in order to, from the synthesized billing perspective, reconcile and true up usage. So let's face it, you could have inconsistency across your product catalog, your agreements. You might have legacy contracts or agreements that are itemized. You might have service bundles or packages. This is where the flexibility within synthesized billing and Liongard really melds together really well. So this is where, if you do itemize and you do have those troublesome vendors or unit counts that are just really atrocious and really hard to get your hands on, and you're just having to painstakingly manually reconcile each and every month, if not every quarter, which we don't encourage you to do. We want to do that on a monthly basis so you don't leave anything on the table. But again, it's just untapping that raw data. So you don't have to be a Liongard expert. You don't have to be a James Path expert. You don't have to build these queries by hand. This is where Liongard, their response is amazing, immaculate. They're getting back to you with custom metrics in the minutes. And you know what? This is again where this relationship with Synthesize and Liongard, it's truly one of a kind. Hashtag better together, right? That's where we all started. So enough of that. Let's go on to just the requirements, the overview of Synthesize and the Liongard integration, just so we can paint the picture for those that are new to this integration. What we're doing is leveraging those inspectors or those integrations already within Liongard. They have 70 plus of them for you to take advantage of. And we're going to create custom metrics to query and extract the unit counts from each and every one of those active inspectors or discovered systems within those inspectors. So we're going to return all of those query results per environment, per customer within Liongard, and we're going to then cross-compare that with all of the stuff that we synced in from your PSA, your customers, your resale stack, your products, your services, and then we're going to combine those two so you can see this is currently what I'm billing within my PSA. This is what I extracted from Liongard. Boom, one click reconcile and instantly update that service or line item within your client agreements within your PSA. And again, we support 9 PSAs right now, and that list will continue to grow. But that in itself is our integration with Liongard in a nutshell. Now, any questions, feel free to jump into chat, Q&A. We'd love to hear from you. Let's talk about the requirements. Now, this is kind of a dated slide, and I'm going to touch on that in a second here. But it ultimately comes down to leveraging those inspector types. Now, when we first started, our integration worked best when it was like that parent-child inspector. Think of Microsoft 365, WebRoot, Azure AD. Those are the types of parent-child relationships. So you as a MSP, you have this parent account, which is hierarchical in nature. So you have like a breakdown of each customer and each tenant. So once you deploy that inspector within Liongard, it goes through itself, auto discovery, and then you're mapping those to environments within Liongard. And Ty can definitely touch on that and best practices on how to make sure that your agent health is up to snuff and you're identifying any failed inspectors and whatnot. And we can definitely touch on that when we share our screen, when we take a deeper dive into Liongard here. But that's ultimately what we're doing. And then on top of that, this is where we just recommend that you're mapping all of your Discover systems, all of your active inspectors to environments within Liongard. Liongard will effectively become your source of truth for everything. And so, as I mentioned earlier, too, if there's even inspectors or vendors that aren't currently within Liongard, well, guess what? There's probably ways of leveraging current inspectors that you're leveraging to extract that usage. So there's some really cool things there, and I'm going to highlight some of those in a bit here. But it all comes down to that custom metric, making sure that you're returning that whole number, that integer per active inspector, so we can then aggregate that per environment. So that's really what it comes down to. And I'll touch on this new feature, which is effectively aggregating all those query results per environment. It normally did this really well with parent-child agreements, but because of this new feature that's coming down the pipeline in 1 to 2 weeks' time, once that's released, you're going to be able to open the doors to even parent-only inspectors. Think of like your Sonic walls, your Fortinets, your Cisco Meraki's, and your Windows endpoint. And that's just another benefit. So if your RMM lacks a certain trait or data that we can't actually extract from their API, well, guess what? Maybe it's worthwhile to turn on that Windows endpoint and see exactly what it returns and potentially opening up the door to reconcile even more services within your stack. So there's a ton of value there. And when I say reconciling your stack, I mean reconciling all revenue generating line items to all of your cost of goods sold. If you're an MSP and you love finances and you love the granularity and reporting, take it to a whole nother level and start reconciling your COGS, start reconciling your costs. Then you're going to get a bigger picture into all your net profit and costs per agreement per customer. So just throwing out that tidbit. But if you want to learn more, just come talk to me. I don't bite. So I'm talking a lot. I'm going to soar and roar with nerdy Birdy. Ty, you can jump in here whenever you want because we're going to take a deep dive into Liongard right now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to take this time to set up my other screen here just so we can go through some use case studies and whatnot. Ty, you still with me?
I am still with you.
All right, that's good. All right.
I was just waiting for you to take a breath, brother.
I know. There's lots to cover in such a short amount of time. I get so excited about this stuff. It's one of those things where I think, like I said earlier, like billing, some of the automation involved with running an MSP is just not sexy. And, I'm just trying to draw light to the importance of, spending that time in your business to further streamline and operationalize things, because that in itself helps you scale and grow as an organization. There's no doubt about that. So again, that's truly where Liongard and Synthesize Billing comes into play here. Now,
well, and something to mention too, Bryan, that I don't think you touched on. All of those things that you mentioned get far more difficult with scale.
Yeah.
Right. The more environments you're trying to manage, that means the more billing that you have to keep track of to begin with. And quite frankly, it's probably the more environments that you're managing and keeping track of, it's probably the more likely that you're actually missing some revenue out there as well.
Yeah.
Right. Just the more people you have to keep up with, the less likely it is that you're going to have that billing perfect every single time. And that right there, in my mind, is why this integration with Liongard and Gradient really works so well. because we're getting that information straight from the source, as you mentioned, that source of
Hmm.
truth, right? We're going directly to Microsoft and saying, okay, what does your Microsoft portal say I have in terms of Microsoft 365 licensing? What does your webroot portal say I have in terms of webroot licensing, right? This is not going into some database that has to be manually maintained or documentation that was manually obtained. We're going straight to the source and saying, okay, great. What do you say we should be billing for?
Hmm.
Right. So knowing that we've got that accurate information, okay, we know for sure we have 100 webroot licenses rolled out for this particular environment. Awesome. Are we billing for 100?
Yeah.
And I think more often than not, and I suspect that you will probably agree with this and have a similar experience, when we talk to MSPs, certainly at scale, that then create this integration, they reconcile their billing, more often than not, they're realizing enough essentially left on the table that they can
Hmm.
either cover the cost of Synthesize or Liongard or both.
Both. Yeah,
Right?
both.
We
I would
we
say
quite
both. Yeah. I mean, like
absolutely.
the minute I more often than not, the minute I'm on an onboarding call, getting a partner up and running with Flying Guard, and the minute they sync in usage, it's just like boom. They see huge discrepancies. And either way, everything from money left on the table, you're not charging enough, to you're charging too much. Like you're overcharging your customers. So,
Which is
you know, I
worse.
which is worse.
You
Like
usually is
honestly, that
worse.
erodes trust. And, I've
Exactly.
been there. I've had those critical conversations with customers in which we've overcharged them for the past 30, 60, 90, if not longer. And that turns into hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in just write-offs. And again, it just erodes trust. And then all of a sudden they're just nitpicking at you, like, why did this count go up? And so if you can just systemize your billing processes with Liongard and Synthesize Billing, all of a sudden you have invoice accuracy. And maybe you go to the extent of even telling your customers, hey, I have this great process that identifies exactly what you're using. There is no question that you are paid what you are consuming. And so that's where, too, if you have to make those exceptions for customers that are a little difficult and you need to have those detailed descriptions as to which users are using what, use Liongard to create those reports. Like you already are extracting that usage. Now it's just a matter of toggling that query just to show the number of displayed users, let's say, and then boom, you have a list of consumed licenses and users that are using and leveraging those services. And then boom, it matches exactly what's on the invoice. This is the extent of using Liongard in conjunction with synthesized billing to really come up with some really creative solutions in making your job easier and highlighting exactly and building that trust with your client. Because as soon as you have invoice accuracy, you're going to have better cash flow. You're going to have clients paying you the minute they get that invoice, not having to wait the 30, 60, 90 days just to get paid. Like often that's an afterthought for clients of yours. So, and IT should come first, right? So let's improve your cash flow. And sorry, I digress, but yeah, you're right, Ty. Like this is exactly where I get most excited about leveraging Liongard in conjunction with synthesized billing because it's all encompassing. So that's
And
where
Bryan,
I
while
encourage you to like deploy all your environments to Liongard.
absolutely, and while you're pulling that up, Bryan, I do want to mention too, while it's great, let's say we've got Liongard all set up, we got Synthesize all set up, we hit the button and we say, okay, great.
Yeah.
My PSA says that I have 100 webroot my PSA says I should be billing for 100 webroot licenses. And we look at Liongard, and Liongard says, yep, we have 100 deployed webroot licenses.
Mm-hmm.
We may look and say, okay, that's great. Everything matches. You can also go into Liongard and find out how many workstations you have to begin with.
Hmm.
So maybe you pull up your workstations, you find out you've got 125 workstations. Well, if I've only got 100 antivirus seats, guess what? It may be time to go reach out to that customer and say, hey, we've got 25 unprotected machines. Let's upsell you. Let's get you some more web root licenses so that we can get your machines covered as well.
Right.
Right. So not only can we reconcile that billing, we can also just reconcile those raw counts inside of Liongard with a simple report. Show me my workstation count, and then show me that alongside of my web root licensing count.
Hmm.
So we can
Yeah.
actually shore that up inside of an environment as well.
Yeah. And probably one of the it's so simple, but I think the my most favorite feature within Liongard is just the timeline. Um, I mean, from an operational standpoint, just to be able to pick up that client call and, they had issues with their device or whatever went wrong, they can just jump into that managed device and see exactly on the timeline as to when things occurred, whether it be a patch, latest release, or whatever it is. But again, it takes some sweat equity to just get there, create those custom metrics, and turn on those things that are important to you. Because like right out of the bat, Liongard has like what 1,300 metrics out of the box,
I think
and
we're up to over 1,400. So
yeah,
yeah,
you're
a
you're
bunch.
you're not you're not going to turn on every single one of those. You're going to get flooded. And you don't want that. So this is where, turning on and then drilling into that data print to create actionable alerts as to the things that matter most to you and your SLAs and your billing practices. That's where it's super exciting. And this is really a great segue into that of like use case scenarios. So again, what we're doing is leveraging those inspector types within Liongard. So again, 70 plus, I think there is a couple beta inspectors that you can take advantage of right now too. But everything from Vade, WebRoot, Avik, one of the biggest things that comes out of just Liongard and billing is user and endpoints accounts and how to extract that best. Maybe you do have a current integration with your RMM and your PSA, and maybe it is automatically reconciling those things. One thing that we advocate for at Gradient is to have that level of control, have that overall that single page resale visibility into all what you're currently charging, what you're paying out of pocket from that vendor, what is consumed. And that way you have greater control because we all know things go astray, things go wrong in any given month. So when you go to deploy like or migrate Veeam servers, then all of a sudden you might have duplicate VMs, and then you're inadvertently charging the customer more. But we want you to see those discrepancies before you even hit approve and update that line item in your contract. So you can then go in and adjust or make those decisions so you have invoice accuracy and you have the confidence going in to generate that invoice and get paid on time. So again, we're huge advocates of that. So again, this is where we're leveraging inspectors. If you don't see your inspector there, again, this is where we could probably leverage other inspectors or other means to an end to get that usage. And I'll touch on that in a second when we dive into like software applications and how to leverage even Windows endpoint or your RMM inspector to extract even more than just endpoints. So it's really exciting stuff. I'm going to start off with just roar path commands because this is actually something that was somewhat new to me when I first got it started with Liongard. It's really fascinating stuff. What roar path commands allow you to do is actually use calculations or add calculations to queries, to James path commands. So one of in particular that I had the privilege of working with Liongard's support and engineering team is extracting the number of like consumed storage per gigabyte, and the list goes on through a query. And they were leveraging roar path commands to subtract the total usage by consumed to return the number of extra cloud storage. So I'm going to split. Oh, you know what? This might be not be a good example because I'm currently within Liongard test instance, so I don't actually have access to a child inspector. What you know already, probably, if you're a Liongard partner, is that sometimes that parent inspector data print is different than that of the child inspector data print. So that's why it's returning an error here. But either way, this metric does work. It just goes to the extent of roar path commands, doing subtraction, division, addition. What else am I meaning? Is it multiplication involved there too?
Oh, there's
Um,
all sorts of there's all sorts of different roar path things.
Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight this because this goes to show that um, you have some exceptional cases. You have some, well, every MSP has exceptions to how they go about reselling their services, especially when it comes to storage or user counts and whatnot. This is where you can leverage this raw data extracted from the inspector straight from their API to drill into each and every one of these arrays. So, and each and every one of those objects within that array, so you can extract the and validate your source of truth, the count. Um, and that's where you can create all these exceptions with by leveraging custom metrics. It's really cool stuff. But again, I want to just mention that you don't have to be like a James Path expert. If you can just put it into layman's terms and jump into chat with a Liongard expert, they're going to respond to you within a couple of minutes. They're going to get you that custom metric. And once that custom metrics created, this is where you're just going to jump back into gradient and turn on. And I'm talking with the bot already. I should end chat, but that's the idea. It's really quick. And so next up is another use case as far as user counts. Now, I know this is probably a huge thing as MSPs transition from more of a legacy contract break fix to that of, itemization. You're literally itemizing every single thing that you resell to the customer, to that of user bundles, workstation bundles, site bundles, or service bundles in general, to that of packages too. So how do we extract user counts, and how do we make sure that we're validating, we're returning the number of managed users? If you're a Microsoft shop, if you're a Google workspace reseller, you understand that, Azure Active Directory gets messy really, really fast. So it's not just a matter of, extracting the number of consumed licenses. That could mean jack squat, because not all users that have a consumed license are necessarily managed. So how do we extract that? Well, I'm going to show you just an example of leveraging Azure Active Directory. And they also do have an Active Directory inspector here for you to take advantage of. They have a Google Workspace inspector for you to leverage. But again, it's just using the data print. And I'm going to pull up a child, and obviously I don't have a group named this. I don't know if I do have any groups within this seeded data, but the idea is that you're drilling into this user array. You're going to then drill into one of those objects to filter across all of that array for users that are within or assigned to a group. Now, what's even better is that you can add in things like, to string, to lowercase, so that way you can accommodate like case sensitivity. So this is where you're not having to like create this huge query, or maybe you do have inconsistencies with your security groups or those dynamic groups within Azure AD. Maybe you have like this security group called all users, or managed users, or something along those lines. And maybe through your onboarding, offboarding process, those dynamic groups are automatically adding and subtracting users based on certain parameters. Well, you've already automated that. Now you just need to go to the full extent of automating your billing. So this is where we can leverage these things to say, well, I want the number of count of users for that are assigned to, say all users, or maybe the security group across all your Microsoft tenants that include the word all, whatever it may be. Again, there's flexibility here to extract that usage really, really easily. And then we can add additional filters on top of these. So why stop there? Like, this is where you can then extract even more and filter based on, okay, we'll assign license. Okay, well, there you go. Well, assign license, there's clearly a SKU ID there. Well, why not just go to that full extent? In this query alone, we're saying if user is in this group and is assigned a license, it could be any license greater than 0, because that's within this array, we can then return that count. Now, within this tenant, there's clearly 0 users or managed users that that fit within those parameters. But that's the extent of leveraging the raw data to extract exactly what you need. And let's face it, MSPs, you can vouch, you can jump into the chat and agree with me. You can disagree with me if you don't. Like, this is where like every MSP does things differently. And I can vouch for that because I get to speak and I have the privilege of speaking with you each and every day. And that's the thing. Like, not one MSP standardized on a certain way of reselling their goods and services. Not one MSP goes about reselling the same way. So, and again, that's maybe your differentiator. That might, make you stand out from the rest, and that's okay. But this is where Liongard really comes into play, and fill that technical gap as we were alluding to earlier to return that count. So really exciting. If you're not like, if this is all just going over your head and you're like, I just do billing around here, don't worry. It's okay. You probably have a sysadmin. You can pat them on the back and be like, how's that deployment of Liongard going? And then they can get in contact with Liongard and we can initiate onboarding and get you all settled. But again, it's really fascinating, all the things that you can do. Now, I know we're running short on time, but one last thing before I wanted to get into all the takeaways and best practices, and wrap it up with some prize giveaways, is just software applications. Now, this is another thing that really fascinates me, because there's more and more MSPs that I work with that are trending towards even SaaS management. And so think of another, we already mentioned this too, like, even if you were just to turn on Liongard and Synthesize Billing today, you're probably going to find discrepancies in just one mapped service. And that in itself will pay for Synthesize and Liongard. It's not just another platform. Yes, it's a core platform to your business and achieving that operational advantage so you can scale. But let's get down to brass tacks. There's so much more baked into Liongard. If you were just to turn on the Synthesize integration, just to automate reconciliation of 1, 2, if not 5+ more services, you're paying in full Liongard and Synthesize Billing, because you're streamlining, you're not spending as much overhead manually reconciling those things. You're identifying unbilled revenue, and you're have invoice accuracy. You're getting paid on time, so you can then flip all that time and savings into your business for you to grow. That's the goal. So now, talking about SaaS applications, if you're thinking about doing this, why not leverage your RMM, for instance? And sorry, this should be Continuum RMM. So I'm just going to paste this custom metric in here. And so what we're doing is we're drilling into software installed array. And then we're going to open up the installed software array. Yeah, that's a big number. Over 2,000 agents or installed software across all of your managed systems. Now, there are like quick little wins where you can just instead of having to open up every object trying to find what you're wanting to find, why not just like download the data print, open that up in Notepad, and do a quick find and search. And that way you can be like, oh, well, one thing that's really a big pain point of mine is like counting the number or reconciling the number of log me in applications, let's say. Or again, this is going beyond, or maybe it's Adobe Creative Suite or whatever it may be that you resell and is installed on your managed systems. You can extract that potentially through Windows Endpoint or your RMM inspectors, which is super valuable because all of a sudden you're like, oh, that thing that I spend 2 hours a month reconciling can be reconciled in a matter of minutes just by just querying software applications. Oh, there you go. Software applications install software. Each object we're filtering based on contains logmein. Boom. Mic drop. I just returned the number of logmein agents or software applications across all of your managed systems for that particular environment for that customer. And then we can extract that into synthesized billing for you to then review and approve and instantly update those contract line items, agreements, additions in your PSA. So that's like quick, nerdy, Birdy, nitty-gritty. It's deep dive into Liongard custom metrics. But
and by the way, anything in our data print can be turned into a metric that you can do whatever you need to with. You can create an actionable alert. You can create a report. You can, if it's a count, you can push it right over into Synthesize and compare to your agreement in Synthesize. But anything at all in that data print can be returned as an individual metric.
Yeah, and that's just it. And one thing before we go on to the next is just highlighting the aggregation of active inspectors or discovered systems per environment. We realize that this is something that we were missing. It's currently in review right now. It's going to be released very soon. So this will even open up the doors to parent-only inspectors like Windows Endpoint. So this is where if I can find, say, Windows Server, for example, as soon as you deploy that inspector, you're going to be associating those active inspectors to environments, right? So this is where right now, traditionally, those parent child inspectors work really well with our platform, but now we're going to open up the door to parent only. So the 3CXs, the Sonic walls, like I mentioned earlier, all of those parent only inspectors, now you can take advantage of. So this is where, you might actually have more than one active inspector per environment. So this is where, like in this case, maybe you have those two active inspectors and they're all tied to Contoso Nation. Well, that's where we're going to, once this is released in the next couple of weeks, be able to aggregate those query results from those custom metrics and then aggregate them per environment. So that will really help you as an MSP to even open up the door and reconcile even more of your resale stack, even more of your cost of goods sold. So I just want to highlight that. But let's talk, Ty, some best practices. Let's just touch on onboarding with Liongard because let's face it, again, we mentioned this earlier, it takes sweat equity. Same thing to be said with billing. It takes time, change management. There's a lot to unpack there. So how do we go about best practices with leveraging inspectors? And let's touch on onboarding.
So the very first best practice, Bryan, and again, I do want to sort of lean into, it does take a little sweat equity. Having said that, once you do have Liongard fully deployed, you are very, very easily going to be able to find the value of having all that data in one place. So really the very first thing that we just recommend is make sure that you are fully deployed. If it's in your tech stack and we have an inspector for it, it should be in Liongard. I can't tell you how many times we have had customers come to us and say, man, if I'd have only rolled out that extra domain inspector, I'd have saved myself some heartache in X, right? Whatever that problem was that they had, they look and say, okay, great. Is it in Liongard? No, it's not. Oh, then I've got additional time to get up and running. If it would have been in Liongard to begin with, matter a couple clicks and I'd have been right back where I need to be. So really the very first thing is just making sure that you're fully deployed. because we have that auto discovery feature that is going to continually sort of discover things that come into the network, that's your other value and your other sort of big maintenance item. You want to jump into Liongard and make sure it just hasn't discovered some things you aren't aware of. Right? One of the big values and use cases for Liongard is the security use case. You can't secure something if you're not aware it exists. Mm-hmm. Having Liongard fully deployed and having it discovering those systems as they hit the network is going to help you prevent that exact thing. I will tell you all, and I know that not every MSP has a dedicated project staff, but I can tell you at my old MSP, I can't tell you how many times we would get a call in from a customer that says, hey, we got this server and it's not doing what it's supposed to do. We pull up our documentation and we don't even see that server exists. So what in the world? Where did this server come from? We get to digging around a little bit and we found out, oh, the project team just installed it this weekend and they haven't had a chance to document it yet. Right. So we had a built-in gap where maybe 30 minutes to an hour, we're just trying to figure out where this silly thing came from. With Liongard is going to discover that. If you've got your Active Directory inspector rolled out, we're going to discover that server as soon as it gets added to Active Directory. So even if the project team hasn't said, hey, this new server exists, Liongard's going to see it. And if we want to know some information on it, all we then need to do is activate that inspector. And now I actually have, again, actionable information on that server where I can maybe go address that partner's concern.
Yeah. I think one thing to note too, that things change and they change frequently too. So like the ever-changing threat landscape, the ever-changing tool stack that you have, and, I like to pick on Microsoft because it is really easy to, but look at their changes with Microsoft NCE. There's going to be more changes to those things. So if you have current integrations within your Microsoft 365, that's great. But this, again, is where we're extracting that raw data so you can quickly pivot and create actionable alerts according to what's happening now. So you're not just standing there in the woodwork second guessing yourself. And so
and so many MSPs too, Bryan, they'll check that stuff at onboarding, but then they never check it again. Right. So maybe your security standard says, okay, great, MFA must be turned on for Microsoft 365. You look at onboarding, yep, it's turned on. What happens if somebody goes and turns it off?
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times that gets completely unaddressed. They don't even know. Well, because Liongard is doing that once a day audit, somebody turns it off, we can send you that actionable alert. And okay, great. It was correct in onboarding, but we're 6 months away from onboarding. That condition changes. It's not a problem anymore. We can look and say, okay, great. That condition changed. Why did it change? Was it supposed to? No, it wasn't. Okay, great. Let's go put it back. Right. Let's go get things back to our standard so that we're not caught flat-footed. And the last thing we want is some malicious actor to find out before we as the service provider finds out.
Yeah, that's bad news bears for sure.
Exactly.
No, I know we're running short on time, so I want to get to the takeaways. Just mention your onboarding process here, and if there's any Liongard partners, new or otherwise current, how do they get in touch with the success team? How do they ensure that they onboard Liongard to its fullest?
So we have lots of, we do a full onboarding. It is usually, I think there's 3 different tracks total on onboarding. You can get it kind of a simplified onboarding, or you can get sort of a full service kind of white glove onboarding. Moral of the story is I believe that the full service one is 6 total 1-hour sessions with your support engineer. So we are actually, we're gonna take you by the hand. We're gonna show you all the things you need to know to get Liongard deployed, and we're gonna make sure before we release you out of onboarding and turn you over to just our regular support staff that you do have everything you need to know about Liongard in order to be successful. Then beyond that, we do continuing education sessions. We do a monthly feature update webinar where we talk about all the new features that were coming out.
Which you host.
Which, at least for now, I host with my new role. Not sure if that's going to continue. But I do know that we are going to continue to do Q&A sessions on a monthly basis as well. It's kind of like Nerdy Birdy, just a little more attendee driven, right? Where we just allow the questions to come in and we just answer them kind of rapid fire as they show up. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we maintain that relationship with the partner and get you to the successful outcomes that you purchased the Liongard for.
Yeah.
Once we then have those done and we say, okay, great, we're checking all the value that you intended to get from the platform. Awesome. Now
Mhm.
let's get you some added value then even on top of that. But we do want to make sure that we get you to your preferred target outcome.
Yeah.
So like I said, we will do everything we can to hold your hand and get you to that point. And then once you're there, more often than not, we can even add you some value on top of that.
Yeah, and I already see some familiar names in the chat here that I'm working with right now. So there's definitely no shortage. Just onboarding. Just get in contact with Liongard, your rep, your account manager, whomever, your success manager here at Gradient. We're here to help, and we will put out all the stops just to make sure that you achieve those outcomes. Now, lastly, before we get to the announcement and prizes, we already ran that draw. There's a couple winners. So here you go. Takeaways. Let's talk takeaways. Takeaway number one. And here I'm just gonna switch to the next one here is we're not just another platform. We're not the middleman. I mean, yes, we are the middleman, but we're just not another platform. We're trying to fill that technical gap that you have already. So this is where Liongard and Synthesize Billing, it is truly better together. We're addressing huge gaps that you have as an MSP, and we're going to continue to improve those things so you can achieve your fullest. Now, I don't know what's happening to my computer, but it's kind of dying here. Here you go. Takeaway number two is don't be confined to simple metrics. Again, you don't have to be a James Path expert. Jump into Liongard chat, reach out to myself. We're going to get you those custom metrics, put it into layman's terms, make it as easy as possible for you, because once that custom metric is built, hands off. You don't have to do anything else. Turn on the actionable alert, turn on
And
that
I
change detection.
and I promise you that we, Liongard, have James Path experts.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, you do. I can vouch for that. Now, takeaway number three, use metrics to reconcile more than one service. So if you find a source of truth, your managed users, your endpoints, whatever it may be, maybe you have product inconsistency or whatever it may be. Maybe you have some legacy contracts that you itemize things here, but it's included in service bundles here. We have the flexibility to do that within synthesized billing. So don't limit yourself just to reconciling one service per one metric. You can do many to one services or products within your PSA to one single custom metric. So do not be confined to just that 1-to-1 ratio, if you will. Next up, takeaway number 4, before we give away some prizes here, is the single source of truth across environments and managed devices. This is where Liongard becomes your single source of truth. Synthesize becomes your single point for you to review and reconcile your entire resale stack. So this is truly one of a kind integration where you can, I'm going to challenge you. You could potentially reconcile your whole resale stack. And if I'm wrong in saying that, well, like reach out to me, like let's talk. Like maybe there's some ways we can extract even more usage through the inspectors that you currently have turned on. Now, I'm gonna skip QA because we're quickly running out of time. So I apologize if you do have any questions, but if you do, reach out to us, get involved. If you're just new to Liongard, reach out to them, get on a trial. If you're new to Synthesize, well, guess what? It's free to get started. Activate your account today. Just go to meetgradient.com. And then last but not least, let's do this prize giveaway because some of you have been patiently waiting for these prizes. Now, I have 2 to give away. I have this fantastic, flocking awesome swag package. I won't say exactly what's included, but it might include like a stuffed Gilda pink flamingo or a flocking awesome or sexy as flock hat. Like I'm biased, but Radiant has some excellent swag.
Bryan, it better include a gradient headband. I have a pink. I can't. Don't make me go get my. Don't make
Can we
me go
get?
get my
Hey,
pink gradient headband.
why didn't you show up with that on? I don't
I
know,
should
but maybe next time. So,
next time.
who's getting that swag package? We did the draw. Drum roll, please. Jordan Wilson, you got yourself a swag package. If you can jump into chat and message us, if and just include your email, I'll reach out to you and we will get all your details so we can get that in your hands. It's going to be awesome. And then we got an even bigger prize giveaway right now: 6 months free of Billing Pro. And this one is huge because it's you can then turn on Liongard right now. And so that's 6 months free. Bunay, BB, believe it or not, you won that. So congratulations. You won 6 months free of Billing Pro. That's going to be huge for you and your team. I don't know where you're sitting right now, but I can imagine that you're jumping out of your chair. There's confetti going everywhere. I don't know what's happening there, but either way, congratulations to those two winners. Thank you so much for joining us for this series of Nerdy Birdie. Again, come join us every third week of every month for the next Nerdy Birdie series. The next one's coming up at February 21st. Still to be determined what's happening there, but keep on the lookout. And if you have any suggestions on what you want to hear from us, whether it's PSA related, best practices, billing best practices, finances, deep dives into synthesized vendor integrations, CSV imports, which we're actually just about to release a new and improved CSV import process, which is going to be awesome. Plus all of the added features and integrations that are coming very, very soon here. We love to hear from you. We want you to get started. And yeah, I love to work with you. And I'm sure Ty will say the same thing. Any last thoughts before we let everyone go there, Ty?
Not that I can think of, Bryan. Just want to thank you so much for having me. I definitely appreciate you inviting a nerd to today's Nerdy Birdie.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for the nerdy birdie himself, Ty, for joining us, aka the king of the jungle. We take a lot of pride in our Liongard integration, and we look forward to supporting you and turning on that integration of ours. So thank you so much for
Likewise,
joining us. And
match made in heaven.
yeah, and if you just joined us late, this will be recorded. So if you're interested, reach out to myself or reach out to Gradient and our team, and we will get you that recording. So thank you so much, and you have yourself a great week, and we look forward to working with you. Take care, everyone.
Talk to you soon, folks.
Bye.